Welcome to the Get Over Yourself podcast. This is author and athlete Brad Kearns discovering ways to be healthy, fit, and happy in hectic, high-stress modern life. So let's slow down and take a deep breath, take a cold plunge, and expertly balance that competitive intensity with an appreciation of the journey. That's the theme of the show. Here we go. Just about everyone listening could have put away $25, $50, or $100 a month starting when we were of income earning age. So let's say starting when we were 20. And then how old are you now? Raise your hand. I'm 54. How about you? Oh, 64. How about you? 47? That's a lot of money if it's just sitting there earning interest in a mutual fund or something simple. Oftentimes I'll achieve these breakthroughs or new insights that just arrive to me when I'm not trying and when I'm doing something besides staring at a screen. Get into that positive, happy mindset and then manifest your dreams into reality, especially calling wealth and abundance into your scene. This is Brad. I want to tell you about my life-changing acquisition of a personal home-use sauna. I have a 6x6 barrel sauna in my backyard, ready-made heat therapy, a fabulous unit from Almost Heaven. Check out their website. You can very affordably order your own sauna for installation in your backyard or garage and have a sauna experience, the fabulous health benefits accruing from exposure to hot temperatures. Get that sweat going. These are beautiful traditional dry barrel saunas where you splash the water on the rocks, go in there and relax. It's become a social centerpiece at my home. People traveling from far and wide to come check out the barrel sauna, turn the dial or set the timer and walk in to 200 degrees in the Caribbean seas. For some reason, people like to come to the sauna more than my cold tub. Go figure. Check out almostheaven.com and their beautiful natural wood designs, and pretty soon, surprisingly affordable, you will be in the home sauna business. You got to stop and smell the roses. That's what this breather show is all about. You got to stop and smell the roses. You got to count your many blessings every day. Hey. I read a great article and I want to share it with you, including my running commentary. That's what I get to do because it's my show. It was written by Andrew Merle, MERLE.com, titled What is Success Anyway? With some great reflections here about getting our priorities straight, stopping and smelling the roses. Let's go through it together and see what you think. I want to get your thoughts kicking into gear. But it starts off with a wonderful message that, hey, you know, we're socialized these days to hustle and grind, and that's going to be our path to success and happiness. If we aren't out working others, we'll be left behind. But what does success really mean, asks Merle. His definition is, quote, doing work that I love and living a long, happy, and healthy life. And then he's presenting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 insights to help us get there. Well, how about this one? Can money buy happiness? I mentioned this study on an earlier show. It was a prominent study that revealed this shocking insight that money stops producing happiness after you have met your basic needs, food, clothing, shelter, to the tune of an income of $75,000 per year. More research clarifies those findings to show that happiness gains from income starts to fall off once you get past that. I guess you could say that's a basic needs threshold, especially in most major urban areas. I just read something that in San Francisco, you basically need a 6-figure income to make it work there because the rents are so expensive. Pretty crazy, huh? But I guess in most places, in urban areas where you're going to need a nice place to live, nice food, maybe your health club membership, your phone service every month. What else do we need? You can probably hit that pretty well with around $75,000 a year, arguably, for this study. And then happiness gains from income start to fall off, become very low by $160,000 per year, and hit zero at $200,000 a year. Of course, you want a comfortable standard of living to minimize financial stress, which definitely would kick in, one would assume, if they're below the income threshold where your needs are being met, especially if you're a family household. But chasing huge income as a means to happiness is not a proven strategy. So I read the study, some other articles about this. I wonder what you think. I don't know if it's this simple. I think it depends on the person. There's prominent research that lottery winners have a huge increase in stress, turmoil, high divorce rate. They get ostracized from their social community. They quit their job. Their self-esteem plummets. And it's really disturbing to think about because, for example, if I were to be a lottery winner, I would argue strongly that I would be extremely well adjusted and everything would be just fine. And I'd do good things with my money. Who knows? Maybe I'd be charitable. Who knows? Maybe I'd pick up some more fun hobbies. Maybe I'd get better at golf. Maybe I'd see more places around the world and take my friends and family with me. It would be all good. There wouldn't be any bad. Would you agree for yourself if someone called you up and said, hey, you won the lottery? I don't know, people. What would really happen? You can understand how you would move into a different socioeconomic category. There's a prominent phenomenon where people start mooching you. They start treating you differently. You're not on equal footing. So there's kinds of things like jealousy and resentment kick into gear with perhaps the closest people to you. And yeah, it could be a bad deal if it's not handled well. Personally, I see people at all different income levels who are both struggling and who are both very happy. So very wealthy people that are extremely well adjusted, doing great things in the world. Listen to my show with Ray Sidney, Big George, and early on in the podcast, you can search for it in the archives. One of the earliest Google employees, in fact, the fifth employee hired by Google. So he made his fortune at a young age and is living a good life up in Lake Tahoe, having fun. #1 philanthropist in his area. So he's made a huge impact on the community. Not a lot of ill effects. As you can listen to him in detail, and especially how that wealth was generated was through a pure motivation, which I like to talk about a lot. He was fascinated by mathematics. He studied at the highest level on the planet, going to Harvard and getting a doctorate from MIT, driven by a fascination with doing the best he could, being the best he could be, pursuing the highest expression of his talents in that scientific area. And then, of course, wow, what good luck to land at Google and see that turn into an economic windfall. But it was the order of priorities that's relevant here, because there's a lot of people that set out for Silicon Valley or what have you, intending to strike it rich, but perhaps not with their priorities straight, and therefore will have a story and an excuse and a complaint rather than being committed to the process all the way. And speaking of Google, the founders, Larry and Sergey, famous for holding out on that instant cash bounty that happened during the dot-com days of 1999 and 2000. So they refused to go public because they were steadfastly committed to building the world's best search engine and didn't feel like distracting themselves by jumping in onto the dot-com craze. And of course, it was only several years later when the company did go public and, of course, turned into vast amounts of wealth. But they were committed to something much bigger than making a quick buck, like so many startups trying to just put up numbers. I remember back in those days, there were websites that all they cared about was getting more and more viewers. They didn't care about really making money or have a plan to make money. And it was just kind of riding that wave that, of course, the bubble ends up crashing when you have these entities that are being valued highly but not really generating income. So apply that to your own life. But back to the question that getting your income up and over 160,000, 200,000, it matters not at all if you were to double it from that point on. That one I feel like I'm going to have to challenge a little bit. Because again, if you're positioned to, do good things with your economic comfort and your time and your freedom and all the things that money represent, it doesn't necessarily have to, have the increases in income put into a negative context or adding stress to your life. I will observe that as your income rises and your possessions, your assets, your financial matters become more complex, that can easily become a stressful point in your life. If you get sucked into the consumerism hole, if you start to trend in the direction of FOMO, fear of missing out, or folk you too, fear of keeping up, had great commentary on that from Alicia Goldstein, one of the early shows. He's the director of the California Mindfulness Institute, expert on mindfulness, and also Dr. Ron Sinha, who takes care of very high income patients in California's Silicon Valley, talking about the disease state of FOMO, whereby people, even in the highest income in the entire, possibly in the entire world, the highest income community in the Silicon Valley, 2.5 times the national average, where everyone's making well over six figures and paying for median home prices of 1.2, 1.3 million. But there's always people around that have more. And in the case of Silicon Valley, there's people that have a lot more. So you get fear of missing out, even though your basic needs are more than met. And so maybe you're one of those statistics in the study showing that you have zero increase in happiness once your income exceeds 200,000 and goes up to blank, 400,000, 800,000. So I'm going to say that let's take personal responsibility here to, for example, coming to mind, take care of what you have. Be appreciative of what you have rather than wanting more. I enjoy taking care of my old golf clubs instead of going and looking for the shiny new ones, and taking care of my body so I can swing the old golf clubs very skillfully and successfully, knowing that that's going to be the best way to play golf, rather than seeking the solution is in buying more. Same with taking care of a vehicle. Or your home, for example. The beauty and the magic of minimalism, and not just minimalism, but efficient minimalism, we could call it, where you have your stuff, it's well organized, you know where to find things, they're in good shape. If you're feeling like recreation one day, your bike is ready and tuned up and you're ready to go out there and have some fun, that kind of lifestyle, rather than the excess, which we see, the rampant examples of inefficient and stressful consumerism, where you go into your closet and you can't find anything because you keep buying more stuff and fail to discard the stuff that you don't wear anymore, kind of stuff. And so Bradley here is challenging this first one a little bit. Money can buy happiness, but only to a point. Because I think if you're a wise and discriminate consumer, that you put some money away for savings, like all the experts suggest that you do. You know, those articles you've probably seen where if you decide to skip Starbucks every day, so let's say $5 a day, you're going to make your own tea at home, and you do that starting at age 20, and invest it in a conservative, not something crazy, but just a 6% interest per year earning, when you're 60 years old, you will have $500,000. Oh, yeah. So try telling that to the young people of today, to sacrifice a little bit of instant gratification for long-term saving and security, and it's a tough sell. I personally, looking back at this age, I will say that I have regrets for not adopting a little tiny bit of that mindset along the way, where just about everyone listening could have put away $25, $50, or $100 a month, starting when we were of income earning age. So let's say starting when we were 20. And then how old are you now? Raise your hand. I'm 54. How about you? Oh, 64. How about you? 47? That's a lot of money if it's just sitting there earning interest in a mutual fund or something simple. So I try to tell my kids, of course you want to pursue your passions and the highest expression of your talents, do things that you enjoy that are meaningful to you, but keep a little something in the back of your mind about the importance or the relevance of things like security, the economic consequences of your decision, the concept of building wealth slowly and steadily. Keep those in the back of your mind, because that's going to contribute to, for example, the author of the article defining success as living a long, happy, healthy life. I would say with a lot of freedom, a lot of free time, and a lot of choices and options. Okay. So we got that one covered. We got everybody set straight. The next presentation is that working very long hours is not a recipe for productivity or happiness. Great research showing that productivity falls off sharply when you exceed 50 hours per week of work and drops off a cliff after 55 hours. Are you feeling me here? You have any reference points yourself? Oh my gosh. Thankfully, at this age, I don't have the battery power, the engine that I used to do these long working stints. I remember in college falling behind a little bit and then going to the library for 11 hours straight and studying with Tom Milhoff at UC Santa Barbara and catching up from weeks of slacking in my economic studies and being capable of that and stepping out for a cookie from the kiosk and then back to studying for another 5 hours straight. These days, I don't think I'm capable of that. And I think there's a lot to be said for being more efficient and balanced with your time and your energy, because pretty soon the decline in focus, cognitive performance, the propensity for distraction, the fatigue factor where the tasks that you're doing are taking longer and not being as well thought out, those are definitely relevant. And the problem here is that when you get tired, when you get fatigued, when you're putting in too many hours without the right discipline or balance between, let's say, physical activity and cognitive tasks, you don't notice because you're too tired to notice how inefficient you're becoming. So basically, we have to trust ourselves here to realize, for example, an insight that working over 55 hours a week is a ridiculous notion because things are going to take longer because you're off your A game. Okay. In the world's happiest countries, the author says, which have primarily been concentrated up in the Scandinavian area. I did a whole show on that, and the Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland, Iceland keep coming up top in all these different categories of quality of life and happiness. These countries have an average work week of 37 hours a week. Despite that, because we can scoff when the U.S. is putting up more hours, some big champs have come out of Scandinavia. IKEA, Skype, and Spotify are listed as examples here. You also desperately need sufficient vacation time. And U.S. is falling short here. We know that the European averages are much higher. 6 weeks of vacation time per year has been shown to be optimal for happiness. And Americans take an average of only 11 days of vacation per year. Oh my gosh. So that's 2 weeks. That's kind of your basic hiring package at many jobs, as you start with 2 weeks vacation and build from there. So that's surprising to learn that the American average is so low. And what happens when you don't take vacation? You get into ruts, you get stale, you lose your creative thinking, you lose your ability to segment information and jump from one insight to the other. These epiphanies that almost always come when you're away from the grind and you're doing something different. I know from my aerobic activity, when I'm out there jogging and might be listening to a podcast or might be listening to music or might be listening to nothing, oftentimes I'll achieve these breakthroughs or new insights that just arrive to me when I'm not trying and when I'm doing something besides staring at a screen and diving into this high-tech world that we're immersed in this overstimulation and hyperconnectivity. The critical importance of vacation was covered in the Primal Blueprint book. There is plenty of evidence attesting to the fact that we can be more productive when we carve out time for play and vacation from our busy schedules. A New Zealand study reported that following a vacation, people were 82% more productive and enjoyed enhanced quality of sleep. But 43% of Americans had no vacation plans in 2007. due to work pressures. It's probably worse in 2019 than in 2007. A 2006 study described in the Sunday Times in England noted that the percentage of married couples citing lack of quality time due to overwork as the basis for divorce had more than tripled in recent years, and the traditional leading reasons for divorce, the bad stuff, violence, infidelity, etc., dropped sharply. Moving on to the next one, social relationships are the best predictor of overall health and happiness. We got into this in the new book, Keto for Life, extensively, and finding some sad realities of modern times that people are losing the number of friends. The size of our social networks are dropping sharply, whereby the average American only has something like 1.2 really close friends, people that would drop everything to be with you in a moment and do whatever you needed to be doing in an emergency or a crisis. And boy, I think we can all reference this, how the influence of technology has kind of created distance from those sort of everyday random social interactions that we experienced in the old days in different generations, where, I don't know, you're walking down the street and you stop by at the neighbor's house, and all these open door policies and the people sitting on the porch in their rocking chairs and communing with your neighbors. Ben Greenfield did a classic Instagram video, sort of a epiphany day, where he realized that, he's been biohacking his way to the top of the health world and spreading the message and trying to figure out the best way to optimize life in so many ways. But he mentioned in the video his awakening that he doesn't even know who his neighbors are. He doesn't really have any physical connection to his surrounding community, because basically he lives somewhere and then he heads to the airport and flies around the world. And I think so many people can relate where, oh my gosh, when I was racing as a triathlete, jumping on airplanes and flying around the world a lot for 10 years. And I would just, leave my driveway every day, whether it was on foot for a run or a bike ride or in my car, and drive past all these houses. Didn't know those people in them at all for years and years. I think we threw a party finally for a neighborhood gathering, just put flyers in the mailbox and had a huge turnout. So I think we crave these social connections that we've lost. I know from walking into a crowded Starbucks to get my mobile order, so I don't have to hassle with waiting in line or talking to people. I just grab it off the counter and go. But you see, in many cases, they're very crowded gathering spots. So that's kind of cool. For all the bad stuff Starbucks has done, pitching sugar into the human body to great detriment of health across the country, across the world, at least they're a gathering spot for community. So redeeming value. So a Harvard study conducted over 80 years revealed that close relationships, more so than money or fame, are what keep people happy throughout life. These findings hold true when factoring in all these other variables like genes, social status, IQ. The thousands of people in the study, those who were most satisfied in their relationships at age 50 were the healthiest at age 80. Those checkpoints remind me of the Cooper Institute and University of Texas Southwest study predicting longevity at age 50 by one's time in the mile run. So if you have a satisfactory time or a great time in the mile at age 50, you have an extremely high probability of living healthily up to 80 and beyond. So I guess the perfect formula here would be to have a bunch of friends at age 50 who are all really fast running the mile, and then you're all going to have a great time and be happy and social and physically fit until you're 80. The study's lead researcher, the Harvard study's lead researcher, concluded, quote, "The key to healthy aging is relationships, relationships, and relationships." They also have the effect, not just longevity, but boosting your mood on a day-to-day basis. And the study suggests that you aim for 6 hours of socializing per day. It seems like a lot, doesn't it? When we have so many obligations and so many, core responsibilities, most likely relating to you interfacing with the screen or you doing your own thing in some way, shape, or form, except on the rare occasions of whatever, working in a restaurant environment or on an assembly line where you're interacting with people and you could count that as being social even though you're doing work together. But for most of us, 6 hours a day socializing is probably more than we get. And guess what? The data proves my conjecture to be true. As I keep reading, there's a study showing that Americans socialize for an average of only 41 minutes per day. I would say on this one, there's a lot of personal preference involved, and some people, my sister relates how she's busy interacting with people all day and serving the community as a physician, so she's in that service category. She looks forward to the time where it's just her and her dogs in the evening relaxing. So the ebb and flow of needing to be social, definitely put in a plug for that, but I think we all should be mindful of those opportunities to connect instead of just retreat into a digital experience, which is really easy to get caught in that rut. Okay, next one. Happiness causes success, not the other way around. Sean Anker, one of the world's leading experts between happiness and success connection, says we have the formula backwards. So first we want to get happy, and that leads to success. What an interesting insight. And he provides 5 everyday habits to boost your happiness. I love this. Yeah. Get into that positive, happy mindset and then manifest your dreams into reality, especially calling wealth and abundance into your scene. But if you're kind of grinding, feeling desperate, feeling negative, and thinking that's going to be a path to any form of success, even material success, I don't know, you might be right. There's a lot of unhappy, mean people that are achieving material success, but I guess that's missing the point. So we want to be happy and materially successful. How about that? So here's some 5 steps offered. Write down 3 things each day that you're grateful for. Journal about a recent positive experience for 2 minutes every day. Engage in 15 to 30 minutes of cardio exercise like brisk walking or jogging. And I'll make that distinction that we don't want that to be strenuous. We just want it to be refreshing. So that's a big one to build happiness. Meditate for just as short as a couple minutes per day. And that's what my cold plunge is all about. I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone because I'm getting the cold therapy, the hormetic benefits of the stressor of the cold water, but it's also an opportunity. It's sort of a necessity that I launch into a meditative state because that's the only way to overcome the cold for the 5 to 6 to 7 minutes that I stay in there. And then start your workday by writing a 2-minute positive email thanking a friend or colleague or complimenting someone you admire. Sean Aker suggests that doing these 5 things every day for 21 days straight will produce profound and lasting happiness benefits. The next item on the list is making sure that you're not looking back in regret at the end of your life. And we all have heard that adage of the person on their deathbed. No one ever said, I wish I'd spent more time at the office on their deathbed. I tried to attribute that, did some research. Maybe it was Ben Franklin or somebody, Mark Twain, but it's been attributed to many different people. So it's just out there floating into the culture. And it's a nice insight to think about. There was a book referenced by the author here. The book was called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, written by Bonnie Ware. And it was not scientific or proper polling to be a true resource, but it was sort of her insights working with the elderly. And so she, it was a very high-selling book. A lot of people loved it. To get some good reflections about what it's like to be on the deathbed and what she shared with her people that she cared for. And so she came up with these 5. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. That was number 1. Number 2, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Number 3, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. Number 4, I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. And number 5, I wish I'd let myself be happier. Pretty good stuff, huh? Speaking of number 3, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. Brene Brown giving that great insight in her latest book. I think it went something like a few moments of pain and suffering to be vulnerable and have the conversation you need to have is better than a week of resentment, something like that. So yeah, expressing your feelings, doing it in a kind and respectful manner. Referencing that those John Gray insights about relationships, where is this going to be in conflict with his instruction for the man to suck it up and go off by yourself and do some testosterone boosting cave time activities. Don't speak with a negative emotional charge. I'm definitely appreciating that insight tremendously every single day, and realizing that if we just take a step back, instead of getting triggered about this or that or everything that comes through that's not perfect communication in daily life, a lot of times we're going to resolve these things in our own mind and realize that what our contribution is to all these times when we're offended and put out and all this kind of stuff. So express your feelings, but be good at it, manage your emotions, and say what you need to say it in the right way. And that's my enhancement to that one on the list. Because if you just take it at face value, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. There's a lot of jerks out there that are expressing their feelings 24/7, and I don't think that's going to lead to happiness. So, okay. Getting toward the end here, we need to slow down and savor life. Modern life is chronically stressful. Our race against the clock. We're into these patterns of chronic stress, chronic inflammation, which is the root cause of all major disease. So when you're chronically overproducing those stress hormones, especially cortisol, which you hear talked about a lot, that's the major fight or flight hormone, puts you in a heightened state of physical and mental function, doing things like converting lean muscle tissue into glucose for a steady supply of energy, gluconeogenesis. So it has wonderful effects for peak performance. But when we overproduce it throughout the day because we're stressed about this, stressed about that, and operating in that fight or flight mode, this leads to chronic inflammation. And that is the baddest deal you can possibly imagine, to be in that inflamed state going through life. That's the root cause of all the major diseases. So instead of always staying in overdrive, quoting the author, we need to consciously downshift. And this is a common practice among the world's longest lived people. So it's all about kicking back into parasympathetic mode, away from that sympathetic dominant state. Again, sympathetic is the branch of the autonomic nervous system associated with fight or flight behaviors, and then parasympathetic is often nicknamed rest and digest. So you're either in go, go, go mode, which is okay. You got to do a busy day. You got to get shit done. You got to get the kids to school on time and then head off to work and then do this and then do that. But we need to learn how to unplug and unwind. So first and foremost, disconnecting rather than staying connected all the time. We have those hours where it's essential to disconnect, take care of your body, do parasympathetic stimulating activities, behaviors such as sauna, such as the cold plunge. After you get out, you kick into parasympathetic. Foam rolling has been shown to very quickly activate parasympathetic, possibly due to the pain relieving chemicals that come, because the foam rolling is a little bit uncomfortable for most people. So doing things like that, the author's listing some other ones like happy hour with friends, spending time outdoors, listening to live music, watching the sunset. I would say a simple one, taking a walk around the neighborhood, evening stroll after dinner, just to kind of get some fresh air, and then make that be the impetus for winding down the rest of the night. Okay, so in conclusion, Andrew Merle is observing that the happiest people discover their own true nature and match their life to it. Ray Dalio, legendary venture capital guy, one of the wealthiest people in the world, quote, "Meaningful work and meaningful relationships were and still are my primary goals, and everything I did was for them. Making money was an incidental consequence of that." Ultimately, life and happiness boils down to finding the right fit for you. It's essential to know your own nature and operate consistently with it. And Dalio adding a little bit here, quote, the courage to be true to your truest self, no matter what other people want you to be. All right, that's a lot to think about. Could it change our lives going forward? I hope so. Thank you for listening. Hey, mister, where you going in such a hurry? Thank you for listening to the show. We would love your feedback at getoveryourselfpodcast@gmail.com. And we would also love if you could leave a rating and a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. I know it's a hassle. You have to go to desktop iTunes, click on the tab that says ratings and reviews, and then click to rate the show anywhere from 5 to 5 stars. And it really helps spread the word so more people can find the show and get over themselves, because they need to. Thanks for doing it.